I never really cared about bee pollen until I started working at Denny's on Route 47. It wasn't the most glamorous place to sling hash browns and pancakes, but the tips were decent, and the people were, at first glance, friendly. Then came the phase. It started with Kayla, a line cook who had recently dumped her boyfriend and gained 6 pounds in emotional fallout. One morning, she came in waving a yellow jar like it was holy water. "Bee pollen," she whispered like it was a secret. "Thermogenesis. Fat-melting magic." I snorted. "What's thermogenesis?" "It makes your body burn calories just existing," she said, tapping her temple like she'd unlocked the code to human biology. "Like your internal temperature rises and bam! Fat gone!" By the end of the week, half the kitchen staff was popping those yellow grains like Adderall. They sprinkled it in smoothies, chased it with lemon water, even snorted it once on a dare. Everyone swore they were shedding pounds. But what really lit the fire was our manager, Bruce. Bruce was a red-faced ex-Marine who never quite left boot camp behind. He barked instead of spoke and had zero filter. If you ate fries on your break, he'd yell across the restaurant, "That's going straight to your ass!" If you gained weight, he'd pinch your stomach and shout, "Winter's over! Hibernate on your own time!" One afternoon, I was leaning against the freezer, gnawing on a peanut butter sandwich when he came up behind me. He grabbed my upper arm, gave it a squeeze, and literally screamed, "Holy shit, Lisa! What are you eating? Cement?" I froze. My cheeks flushed. Everyone laughed, even Kayla. I didn't eat for the rest of my shift. It got worse. Bee pollen became mandatory. Bruce started buying it in bulk and leaving jars in the break room with labels like "Fat Burn Gold" and "No Excuses." He'd point to it during meetings. "We are a clean, sharp-looking team," he'd say. "No one wants to be served by a double chin. You represent this brand." We didn't represent Denny's. We represented his eating disorder. 3 weeks in, Kayla collapsed during her shift. She had been running orders like usual when she just dropped, like someone unplugged her. We all thought it was dehydration. Turned out her blood sugar had bottomed out. The ER doc said her caloric intake for the week had been barely survival level. Bruce laughed when he heard. "Guess she detoxed too hard, huh?" I wanted to slap him. Instead, I started planning. The idea came while I was taking the trash out. I passed the back alley and saw Bruce with one of the servers, Jessica. She was 21. He was 47, married. When they pulled apart, I stayed quiet in the shadows. "I don't want to hide it anymore," she said. "You think I can divorce my wife for a girl who eats breadsticks?" he growled. "Keep taking the bee pollen. Tighten up." That night, I messaged Jessica anonymously through a fake Instagram profile. I told her everything. I told her I'd heard him say the same thing to 2 other girls. I told her he had cameras in the staff locker room. That part wasn't true, but I needed her angry. She blocked him the next day. By the weekend, she had quit. Bruce didn't handle rejection well. A week later, he installed a new rule: weigh-ins. He brought a digital scale and put it in the break room next to the time clock. "You don't have to do it," he said, smiling with too many teeth, "but it sure looked good for anyone wanting that next raise." Everyone stepped on, except me. "Why not?" he asked, loud enough for the whole line to hear. "Because I have dignity," I said, "unlike your marriage." Dead silence. He didn't fire me. He promoted me. That's when things got weird. He started calling me into his office more often. Not to discipline me, but to talk. He'd offer me a protein shake and ramble about how the government was poisoning the food supply, how bee pollen was nature's vaccine. He'd vent about his wife, about Jessica, about the lazy fat kids in the world. I just nodded and smiled. One night, after it closed, I stayed late to finish the books. Bruce said he'd lock up, but I saw his truck still parked when I came out 30 minutes later. The kitchen lights were on. I peeked through the glass. He was in the walk-in freezer, shirtless, drenched in sweat, jogging in place. A jar of bee pollen spilled open beside him. His eyes were wild. There were sticky notes on the wall. "Burn it off. Jessica will come back. Fat is failure. I backed away, breath shallow. This wasn't a diet. It was madness. I couldn't sleep that night. Something about the desperation in his eyes. It wasn't just narcissism. It was dangerous, contagious madness. I texted Kayla. Want to ruin him? She wrote back instantly. Tell me where to start. 2 weeks later. It was a Tuesday. Slow shift. I was on grill, slapping pancakes like they owed me money when the bell jingled and in walked Jessica. Hair bleached, new lip filler, nails like switchblades. Everyone turned. She strutted in like it was a runway, gave Bruce a nod, and slid into a booth. Kayla muttered, "What the hell is she doing here?" Jessica had no apron, no uniform. But 20 minutes later, Bruce handed her one. She was rehired, just like that. "Second chances," he said, clapping his meaty hands. "We all deserve them." No one clapped back. By the end of her first shift, Jessica was in the office. By the end of the week, they were riding to work together. She had her old section back. Her tips were higher than ever. And Bruce suddenly had amnesia about the weight checks and fat-shaming speeches. It was like she'd cast a spell on him. And maybe she had. Because the plan, the one Kayla and I spent nights whispering about, recording his rants, printing out toxic group texts, saving the photo of him shirtless in the freezer, that all hit a wall. Jessica. We tried to pull her in. I messaged her again. "He's a predator. Don't fall for it again." She replied, "You have no idea what game you're playing." And that's when I realized she wasn't brainwashed. She was playing him. And maybe playing me, too. Kayla didn't care. "Let her burn," she said. "We go public. #Denny detox. I'll go on TikTok. I'll cry." I wasn't so sure anymore, because Bruce had started acting different. Not nicer, just quieter. Too quiet. He stopped yelling about carbs. He stopped grabbing people's arms. He started locking his office. He even stopped working the line. But Jessica, she started managing inventory. She made new shift schedules. She'd whisper into Bruce's ear like they were running some inside joke. One night, I stayed late to close and the freezer light was on again. But this time, Bruce wasn't jogging. He was curled on the floor, shaking. No shirt, just sweatpants. Like someone cracked his code. Sticky notes still lined the walls, but they were crossed out. "Fat is failure?" Lies. "Jessica will come back." "She's here. She's worse." I stepped back quietly. The next day, Jessica brought cold-pressed juices for everyone. "On the house," she said, "courtesy of Bruce's new meal plan. I'm helping him clean up. Mind, body, finances." I smiled, but I knew what she meant. She had him entirely. The next week, Bruce was gone. Just gone. Jessica said he took emergency leave, but no one saw him pack. No goodbye. Just an empty office and a post-it stuck to the time clock. "Don't contact me." Signed with a sad face. By then, Jessica had a clipboard and a manager badge. She rebranded the whole vibe. "Denny's Fit Fam," she called it. Same shit, different queen. But worse. Way worse. She brought back weigh-ins. This time with progress charts and anonymous shame boards in the locker room. She suggested we post weekly photos to a private IG page. Anyone who refused got worse shifts or no shifts. And suddenly, I was the target. She cornered me one day by the coffee machine. "You're still eating peanut butter, Lisa?" she asked, voice sugary but sharp. "It's just, with your frame, it shows fast." I didn't flinch, but Kayla did. "She's lost her damn mind," Kayla said. "It's the same madness, just with better eyebrows." Kayla quit a week later. Couldn't handle it. She said her body felt haunted by bee pollen. Me? I stayed. I had to. House rent is crazy these days. I kept my head down until Jessica got promoted regionally. Yep, the franchise loved her ideas. Modernizing the Denny's brand, they said. Wellness culture, female empowerment, social media integration. She left for Arizona, set up shop at another location, posted filtered selfies with captions like, "Boss energy only," and "Don't let a man ruin your diet or your destiny." She became a micro-influencer, 50K followers, some brand deals, a podcast. That bitch. This story was shared by one of our Broccoli fam subscribers. She sent me the following email, quote, "I used to work at this diner where, for a solid couple of months, everyone got obsessed with bee pollen. It started with one person claiming that it kick-started your metabolism through something they called thermogenesis. Basically, your body turning into a fat-burning furnace just by existing. Nobody could really explain how it worked, but suddenly it was in smoothies, teas, even sprinkled on salads like it was fairy dust. The vibe around food got weird fast. What didn't help was our manager. He had no filter and absolutely no sense of boundaries. If you ate something he didn't approve of during your break, like a cookie or a slice of pizza, he'd make some loud comment about your weight, like it was motivational or something. One time, he grabbed my arm while joking around, felt a little softness, and literally yelped like I'd shocked him. It was humiliating. The whole environment fed into this toxic cycle of quick fixes and shame spirals. People weren't getting healthier. They were just getting desperate."
It was storming again. The kind of electric, pulse-thick rain that makes the world outside your window feel like a dying movie set. Monday, June 13th, exactly 3 weeks ago. I remember because I was sprawled on my couch in nothing but sweatpants and a stubborn sense of denial. Suits was playing, that episode where Harvey spins some legal poetry. I was half lost in it and half lost in the sound of my own chewing. I used to watch a lot of TV. Whatever number you're thinking, multiply it by 20. I didn't watch it. I devoured it. My TV was God. I'd skip meals, miss calls, forget birthdays. I even once slept through a break-in. That was the depth of it. I'd invited a few friends over to smoke and eat pizza. But one by one, they bailed. Colds, cramps, something came up. No one was coming. In the silence in the room, it started to feel personal. "F*** it," I muttered, pulling the blanket up to my chest like it owed me comfort. I ordered from Pizza Bullseye. Cheap, greasy, fast. The kind of food that clings to your insides like guilt. 30 minutes later, the bell rang. I opened the door to the delivery girl, soaked, tall, hair dripping in loose curls that stuck to her cheekbones. Her eyes were feline, unreadable but watching me, like she already knew something I didn't. "Large pepperoni, extra garlic," she said. She handed me the box and smiled. No warmth, just slow suggestion. "You like discounts?" Of course. Who doesn't? Always. She held out a coupon, QR code, Pizza Bullseye's logo smudged with rain. "Scan that. Might just be your lucky night." I don't know why I scanned it. Maybe it was her voice. It hung in the air like smoke. The link opened up on my phone, then jumped to my laptop via sync bookmarks. It was strange. No branding, just a single video file in a black window. I pressed play. Static. Then, a face. Michelle. I recognized her. Everyone in town did. She'd been missing for 2 months. Posters in every gas station, grocery store, bus stop. But now she was on my screen, locked in some godforsaken room. Her body shrunken like a dying candle. She stared directly into the lens, and by extension, directly into me. "Please, I'll do anything. Just let me go," she rasped. Something moved in the background. A gloved hand, thick and deliberate, slipped a paper into her fingers. She opened it. Her hands trembled, eyes widening. She lifted the paper to the camera. 10 names. I recognized two. Both locals who'd vanished just weeks before her. Number 8, Michelle. Number 10, me. I felt my stomach twist, like something had reached inside and tied a wet knot. Michelle stared past the lens now, toward whoever held her fate. Her lip quivered. Dad, if you see this, I'm sorry. Then she raised a box cutter. No, 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 I whispered. She screamed as the blade cut down, camera shaking violently. The video glitched, then steadied, the sound of a body hitting the floor. Then, silence. Her name was crossed out. And just like that, my laptop powered off. The room was silent, save for the TV still playing some episode I no longer cared to watch. I couldn't move. My limbs were ice, breath caught halfway between scream and silence. I didn't sleep that night. I didn't go to the police. What would I even say? Hey, I watched a girl die through a pizza coupon link and now I'm next? No chance I was becoming some punchline on Dateline. So I shaved my head, grew a beard, packed a bag. 3 weeks later, I checked into a roadside motel in western Nevada. The kind of place where the walls were so thin you could hear your neighbors in real time. I laid low, ate from vending machines, drank from the tap, tried not to think. That night, it stormed again. Of course it did. The motel TV had nothing but static, so I wandered to the vending machine in the hallway. That's when I saw her. The delivery girl. Dripping, same uniform. Same goddamn smile. You followed me, I whispered. She stepped close. The hallway light flickered above her head like a cheap horror set. You scanned the code. That's consent. What the hell do you want from me? Her voice dropped, low and lazy. Same thing everyone wants. Attention. She brushed past me, fingers grazing my arm. I flinched but followed. Her room was 2 doors down from mine. She didn't ask me in. She didn't need to. I don't even like pizza, she said. She locked eyes with me as she kicked off her boots. You want to know what the real discount is? What? Your life. Tonight only, she whispered. But something was off. Her hands were shaking. Her pupils were dilated. Her skin had that thin sheen of someone who hadn't been real for years. I stepped back. She tilted her head. You think this is about sex? I think this is about murder. She smiled. Both. But you already knew that. She pulled out a phone. Same video interface. Another girl on screen. Not Michelle. This one was newer. A barista from the coffee shop down the street from my apartment. She was screaming. The screen glitched. Then I saw me. My face, frozen mid-scan. You're already in the system, she said. What is this? She stood, walked toward me, and pressed a cold hand to my chest. This is content. Fear is the last honest emotion left in America. You people live for it. You binge on it. Eat it with your popcorn. We're just giving you what you want. I didn't want this. Yes, you did. You clicked. Remember? I couldn't breathe. My throat felt full of pins. She leaned in, her face close to mine, her voice syrupy and slow. You can still opt out. How? Kill someone. Replace your name with theirs. I'm not a killer. Neither was Michelle. She handed me a card, another QR code. This time you choose. I didn't sleep that night either. The next morning, she was gone. The room had been cleaned out. No sheets, no towels, no trace. Only the card sat on the floor, mocking me. I burned it, and now I'm heading west. I don't know where. Somewhere with no internet. Somewhere pizza delivery still means just pizza. Maybe I'll change my name. Maybe I'll grow a beard thicker than the shame I'm carrying. But I had to send this over to Broccoli. To tell you guys, one last warning. Never scan something you didn't ask for. Never trust a discount you didn't earn. And if a girl ever smiles at you in the rain, run. Because the next time you see your name, it won't be on a receipt. It'll be on a list.
When I moved into that cramped off-campus apartment at 19, I thought the worst thing I'd have to deal with was leftover pizza in the sink, or someone forgetting to clean the bathroom. I was wrong. My roommate, Kyle, was one of those guys who seemed cool on the surface. Loud laugh, confident, always surrounded by people, but there was something about him that felt off. I figured it was just me being socially awkward. I'd been a quiet, sheltered kid my whole life. Never good at reading people. But then weird things started happening. It began with small annoyances. My computer lagged when I was working on assignments. The mouse would freeze. The cursor would flicker across the screen. I figured it was a virus. One night, while typing up a paper, the screen blacked out for a second, and when it came back, there were random words on the page. "Loser, why do you even try?" I stared at it, heart pounding. Maybe it was some prank malware. I ran a scan. Nothing. I deleted the words and kept working. The next day, I couldn't connect to the Wi-Fi. MAC address banned, the router's admin page said. Weird, the router was mine. "Kyle, did you mess with the router?" I asked cautiously. He just smirked. "Why would I? You probably clicked on some dodgy adult site, dude." I felt my cheeks flush. I don't do that." He shrugged and left the room. At night, while I sat at my desk working, the screen would flicker again. Sometimes the mouse would move on its own. Sometimes the keyboard would type without me touching it. I started shutting off the computer when I wasn't using it. Still, when I powered it back on, things would be slightly off. Files moved. Folders I didn't recognize. I genuinely believed I was being hacked. Some stranger on the internet, maybe targeting me from the fandom forums I used to hang out on. I was just a skinny kid trying to get through college, trying to improve my body. I'd taken progress pics of myself in the mirror, saved them on my desktop to track my gains. Harmless, right? Until those images got leaked. I came home one day and found Kyle laughing on the couch with two of his friends, Davis and Rich. "Hey man, nice bod," Davis snickered. "What?" I said, stomach dropping. Kyle held up his phone. "Saw these floating around. Thought we'd give 'em a look." My face went cold. My chest felt tight. "How did you—" Kyle stood towering over me. "Relax, man. It's not like you're a celebrity. Who cares if a few shirtless pics got out?" I felt sick. I locked myself in my room and called the only person I trusted, Kevin, an older classmate I'd gotten close to. He came over that night. "You know he's been running screen viewer software on your desktop, right?" Kevin said quietly. My head spun. "What?" "Yeah, like watching you through your own machine. He's probably got admin access on the router, too. That's why you can't connect sometimes." I felt like throwing up. But it wasn't just the cyber shit. Kyle escalated it in person, too. Saran wrap on the toilet seat, peanut butter in my shoes, his friends knocking on my door at night, whispering threats. One night, I heard them outside my door. "Maybe we should go in and make him earn his rent." I sat there, fists clenched, heart hammering. I was done. That night, after they finally went quiet and the apartment fell into an uneasy silence, I texted Claire. Claire was in my bio class. Sweet, sharp-witted, always wearing her hair in these casual, messy buns that somehow still looked perfect. We'd partnered on a project once, and though we weren't close friends, she'd always been kind to me. More importantly, she knew who Kyle was. Everyone did. "Hey Claire, random question. Do you know Kyle from my apartment?" A minute later, she replied, Yeah, the loud one who plays beer pong like it's a full-time job. Why? Would you want to help me teach him a lesson? She replied almost instantly. What kind of lesson are we talking about? I hesitated. This was risky, but I was desperate. He's been screwing with me, like cyber stalking, leaking personal stuff. I need something that'll hit where it hurts. A pause. Go on. So I told her, all of it. Claire didn't respond for a long time. I was sure I'd scared her off. Until my phone buzzed with a new message. All right, here's the deal. I flirt with him. Make him think I'm into him. Get close. Find something we can use. But I need you to promise you're not dragging me into anything dangerous. I promise. I felt lightheaded. I didn't know if this was genius or a disaster waiting to happen, but it was the first sliver of hope I'd had in weeks. The next day, Claire started her part. She ran into Kyle at the student union, complimented his dumb gym shirt, giggled at his jokes. Within a day, Kyle was bragging to his friends that she was into him. Dude, Claire from Bio is all over me, Kyle said one night as I passed the kitchen. I kept my head down, suppressing a smirk. 2 days later, Claire texted me. We're going out tonight. He thinks it's a date. I could barely focus all day, heart rattling in my chest. Was she okay? What if he figured it out? What if this whole plan blew up in my face? Late that night, my phone buzzed. It was a video. My hands trembled as I opened it. Claire, sitting cross-legged on her bed, whispered to the camera, Okay, so turns out your roommate is packing like nothing. I mean, I've seen gummy bears with more bulk. She was biting back laughter, holding up her fingers to show maybe an inch and a half. She winked. You know what to do. I stared at the screen, half in shock, half in giddy disbelief. The next day, a new clip, plus a couple of blurry snaps that Claire had secretly taken when Kyle was half undressed, found their way to a couple of group chats. I didn't leak them myself, not directly, but I knew exactly who would. By that evening, Kyle's phone was blowing up. Yo, Raisin Man! Davis howled from the living room, falling over laughing. What the hell is that supposed to mean? Kyle barked, but the name stuck. Everywhere Kyle went, the quad, the dining hall, even just walking to class, whispers followed. That's Raisin Man. Heard Claire ditched him after seeing the goods. Dude, can you imagine? Kyle tried to laugh it off at first, playing it cool, calling everyone jealous losers. But the cracks showed fast. He stopped throwing parties. He stopped bringing friends over. For the first time since I'd moved in, the apartment was quiet. One night, I walked into the kitchen and found Kyle sitting alone, scrolling aimlessly through his phone. He glanced up, eyes bloodshot. You think you're so smart, don't you? He muttered. I shrugged. I think you should have picked on someone else. For the first time, Kyle didn't have a comeback. By the end of the semester, Kyle moved out. No dramatic goodbye, no party, no crowd of friends carrying boxes. Just gone. I stayed in that apartment for another year, and no one ever called me a loser again. Funny how people's perceptions change when the loudest guy in the room finally gets quiet. One afternoon, I ran into Claire on campus. She smiled, tucking a strand of hair behind her ear. So, Mr. Mastermind, she teased. Feel better now? I grinned. Yeah, thanks to you. She laughed softly, nudging my arm. Next time you want to take someone down, maybe try less blackmail and more, I don't know, standing up for yourself? I raised an eyebrow. And miss the chance to recruit an undercover agent like you? Claire rolled her eyes, smiling as she walked away. This story is inspired from a real-life event shared by one of our Broccoli Fam subscribers. Sadly, in real life, the subscriber didn't stand up for himself and chose to leave the room.
My life was pretty great until my freshman year of college. That's when my mother died. I was so heartbroken I almost dropped out, but my father convinced me that my mother would want me to live my life. I took his advice and tried my best to move on. Unfortunately, my dad moved on a bit too quickly. Just months after my mom's funeral, he told me he met someone new, a woman named Rose. She had 2 daughters, Sarah and Mary, and they seemed nice at first. I didn't like being told to treat them like my mom and sisters, but I tried my best. I just wanted my dad to be happy. I guess he was. He seemed happy. But 3 years later, as I was starting my senior year, I got terrible news. Rose called me in the middle of the night.
Grayson, your father's gone. He died in his sleep.
I couldn't believe it. I didn't even know he was sick. I had to take the rest of the semester off and go back home to help with the funeral, even though he was my father. Rose and her daughters were so distraught that I had to do everything around the house. I planned the funeral, did all the shopping and cooking, and basically took care of my stepfamily while they did absolutely nothing to take care of me. It was awful and deeply unfair. Even worse, I started to suspect that Rose had something to do with my dad's death. It seemed really suspicious that she demanded he be cremated before the coroner could look at him. I started to see her in a new light, but I didn't have enough evidence to confront her about it. I was planning to go back to school the next semester and double up on classes so I could graduate with my friends. But weeks before I was set to leave, Rose told me she wouldn't pay for my tuition. She'd inherited all my father's money, and she said it would be better for me if I stayed home and helped around the house until they were done mourning. I knew that was just an excuse. I called up one of my college friends and asked him to pick me up. I'd take out loans and finish the rest of my year without my family's money. I'd keep my distance from Rose and figure out how I could contest the will, as well as figure out what exactly she'd done to my father. That was the plan anyway. When my friend Liam showed up outside the house, I had my suitcases ready. I was about to sneak out, when all of a sudden, Rose grabbed me from behind and shoved a chloroform-soaked rag over my mouth. As I passed out, the last thing I saw was my stepsisters answering the door and telling Liam I wasn't here. When I woke up, I was in the attic. My head was pounding. The door was locked and the window was too small for me to escape. I was trapped. I screamed for help, but no one could hear me. I was trapped there for at least a day before Sarah dropped off a plate of food and immediately locked the door again. For the rest of the week, I was given a single sandwich every day. Otherwise, there was no contact. My bathroom was a sink and a bucket. I had to dump the bucket out the window whenever it was filled up. I was a prisoner in my own house, and no one knew I was there. After a week, my stepmother opened the door and let me back into the house. While I'd been trapped up there, they'd added bars to all the windows and locks to all the doors. So even though I could go anywhere in the house, there was no way I could escape. And because I was so starved, I was too weak to fight them. Rose explained that every day, I had to come downstairs and do all the chores. Once I was finished, I had to go back into the attic. I agreed to do what she said, but deep down, I planned to fight her and escape once I got my strength back. Unfortunately, I felt weaker by the day. I was horribly malnourished and always hungry. I had no energy at all. This lasted for a year before I realized that my paltry sandwiches were poisoned. Not enough to kill me, but enough to keep me sluggish and in pain. Through trial and error, I realized that the poison had been soaked into the bread itself. Once I figured that out, I developed a plan. I started eating the rest of the sandwiches and hiding the bread under my mattress. When I collected 2 weeks' worth of poisoned bread, I crumbled it into a baggie and slipped it into my stepsister Sarah's milkshake one day. She drank the whole thing, not noticing the taste. The next morning, she was deathly ill. Rose and Mary took her straight to the hospital, leaving me alone in the house. They were so worried about Sarah that they didn't think to lock me back in the attic. I couldn't escape through any of the doors, though. I had to figure another way out. I found paper towels and soaked them with hand sanitizer. Then I used a lighter to set it on fire and threw it into the attic. Pretty soon, the roof was on fire. I waited downstairs as the attic crackled and filled with smoke. I heard the roof crack, and I prayed that firefighters would come before the house caved in on me. As the room got hotter and smoke started to fill my lungs, the front door burst open and a firefighter grabbed me and pulled me to safety. I was taken to the same hospital where Sarah was being treated for poison. She died a few hours later while I was able to hang on. The police had a lot of questions, and I told them everything. How Rose had poisoned my father, pulled me out of school, trapped me in the attic for a year, and slowly poisoned me like she had my father. I'm sure Rose had plenty of excuses to hide her actions, but she was too distraught by Sarah's death to put up much of a fight. She was arrested that afternoon. I'm still recovering in the hospital, but once I get better, I'm going back to school and finishing my education. My friends all graduated a while ago, but that's okay. They've all come to visit me in the hospital, happy that I'm still alive. Pretty soon I'll get my life back on track, and whatever I choose to do with my life, I'm sure my real parents will be proud. This story is loosely inspired from a real-world event. In February 2025, a desperate cry for freedom erupted in Waterbury, Connecticut. Emergency crews responded on February 17th to a house fire, uncovering a horrifying tale. A 32-year-old man, trapped for nearly 2 decades by his stepmother, Kimberly Sullivan, had set the fire to escape captivity. He told police of years spent locked inside a storage room, surviving on minimal food and water. Severely affected by smoke and flames, he finally revealed the abuse. Sullivan, 56, was arrested, though she denied the allegations. For police, it was one of the worst cases of cruelty ever witnessed in their careers.
I met her in the hallway outside our graduate psych seminar, leaning against the wall like she'd been waiting for something to happen. Wavy auburn hair, chipped black nails, black boots that scuffed the linoleum. She looked like a mess in the most intentional way. "You smoke?" she asked, eyes locked on me before I could even pull my folder from my bag. Trying to quit. Try again later. She led the way to the campus greenhouse behind the science block, lit a cigarette, and passed it without asking. We sat on a bench between hanging ivy, the kind of silence that feels like a conversation building from the inside out. Her name was Camille. 3 weeks in, I'd stopped going back to my apartment. Her studio smelled like patchouli and whiskey. The windows always cracked no matter how cold it got. We'd do it everywhere. On the kitchen table, the couch, once on her desk while a paper printed in the background. She made me feel like life was something you could tear into, teeth first. "I've never loved like this before," she whispered once, head on my chest. "Not even close." She meant it. I wish I could say I didn't feel the same, but I did, at least for a little while. By the second month, it started unraveling. First were the mood swings. I'd wake up to her crying in the bathroom, legs pulled to her chest. "You're going to leave," she said once, mascara streaking down. "Everyone leaves." "I'm not going anywhere," I lied. I should have, but I didn't. One night, we fought. Over nothing. I said something about wanting to study alone, and she took it like betrayal. She threw a wine glass at the door and locked herself in the bathroom. I heard the scissors before I heard her scream. When I got in, hair was everywhere. Big chunks missing. Clumps on the floor like animal fur. She looked at me like a child, like she didn't recognize herself. "I don't feel real," she said. I stayed. I told myself I loved her. I told myself it was my duty. But the truth was, I was afraid. A week later, I told her we should take a break. She didn't cry. She stared at me. Then, calmly said, "If you leave, I'll kill myself. I'm not being dramatic, I'm just telling you." I nodded. I said nothing. That night, she curled into me tighter than ever, her nails digging into my back like anchors. I didn't sleep. After that, I stopped trying to be close. I'd study late, turn off my phone, stop texting back immediately. She'd show up at the library. She'd accuse me of cheating. I wasn't. But then again, I wasn't exactly loyal either. There was Julia, another grad student in my cohort. Nothing happened, not at first, but we'd talk, laugh, sit too close at the bar during seminars, and I let her touch my hand once when Camille was out of town. It felt good to be wanted without fear. Camille sensed it. "You're slipping," she said one night as we lay in bed. "You're pulling away." "I'm just tired." "No, you're scared. I can smell fear on people." She rolled over and we did it again like two pigs in the mud. She cried after. I didn't hold her. I started hoping she'd be the one to end it. I made myself colder, more silent. I left her waiting at dinner. Didn't answer the door when she knocked at my place at 3 a.m. And eventually, she did it. One morning, she showed up to my building wearing an old hoodie and no makeup. Her eyes were glassy but not wet. "This isn't love anymore. I deserve someone who doesn't flinch when I touch them," she said. She looked at me for what felt like an hour. Then she turned and walked away. I should have felt free. I should have felt relief. But I felt nothing. Numb. Like I'd been holding my breath for so long, I forgot how to exhale. That same evening, Julia texted me. "Something weird happened last night. You free?" I went over to her place. Her long blonde hair was uneven in the front, jagged, like it had been chewed. "Someone came into my apartment while I was sleeping," she said, her voice cracking. "I woke up to find this." She pulled a fistful of hair from a paper bag. Her own hair. No sign of forced entry. Nothing stolen. Just this. We sat on her couch, both of us stunned. She leaned against me, shaking. "You don't think?" she whispered. I said nothing. A week later, Camille withdrew from the program. No explanations. Just a line in a faculty email that she had personal matters to attend to. No one saw her again. It's been 3 years. Julia and I never became a thing. This story has been inspired from a real-life scenario shared by one of our subscribers. Here's what he said. "I'd ended things once and she tried to end her life. I feared if I did it again, she might succeed. I couldn't live with that. So I grew distant until she left me, hoping I wouldn't feel fully responsible if the worst happened." I joined the running club because I needed something regular, something to keep me going after work besides just scrolling through apps or eating frozen dinners alone. At first, it was about getting fit. Then, it became something else. I mean, I'd be lying if I said there weren't tons of attractive women in the group. We'd talk before warm-ups, after cool-downs, sometimes over coffee. It felt natural. I never pushed anything. If I felt a vibe, I'd ask if they wanted to go do something outside the group. Grab a bite, see a band, whatever. Most said no. Some ghosted me. After a while, it got to me. Rejection stings, even when you pretend it doesn't. Then, she showed up. Her name was Rachel. Wavy brown hair. Freckles. Toned, but not showy. She wore a Guns N' Roses tee on her first run, and I teased her about it the next day. "Didn't peg you as a classic rock chick," I said. "Didn't peg you as someone who'd say peg in a sentence," she smirked. It was flirtatious, quick-witted. She kept pace with me every morning. After the runs, while most people rushed off, we stayed back, sipping coffee, laughing about dumb stuff like how awful the playlist was, or how Barry always ran with his shirt off like it was 1999. Within a few weeks, it was routine. Me and her, side by side at the cafe. No pressure. She didn't say no when I offered her a ride once. She laughed at my stories. She touched my arm when she laughed. I thought, this is it. After 6 weeks, I invited her over for a movie night. "You in for some horror and whiskey?" I texted. She replied with a laughing emoji. "Only if there's popcorn." That night, I prepped. Cleaned the place, got her favorite bourbon, even made popcorn from scratch. I laid out the stuff, too. My toys. The leather cuffs, the silk rope, the blindfold. I mean, we hadn't talked about it yet, but the chemistry was real. The signs were there, clearly. She came over in a hoodie and leggings. Casual. I like that. We watched The Witch. She kept jumping at the tense parts, pulling her knees up like a kid. It was cute. After the credits rolled, I paused the screen and looked at her. "You want to do something a little more fun?" She looked at me, half smiling. "What do you mean?" I stood up, walked to the shelf, and brought the box over, set it on the table, opened it. She looked at it, then at me. "Let's start," I said. My voice was low, steady, confident. Her smile faded. "No," she said. "I don't want to." "It's fine," I said. "It's just roleplay stuff. You'll like it." She stood up, backing slightly. "I said no." I tried to laugh it off. "Don't be scared. You trust me, right?" She moved toward the door. "I think I should go." Something inside me snapped. I grabbed her by the shoulders. "Please stay. Don't freak out." She pushed at my chest. "Let go!" I slapped her. I didn't mean to. My hand moved before my brain caught up. Her face turned, red blooming across her cheek. She froze. My hands were shaking. I didn't mean," I started. But she lifted a finger. Shh. Her expression changed. She wasn't scared anymore. She was calm, controlled, like she'd seen this before. "You want me to stay?" she asked. I nodded, desperate. She walked to my speaker, put on a sultry track. Portishead, I think. She started moving. Slowly, hypnotically. She danced like she'd done it 1,000 times. I was lost in her rhythm. Every step pulled me in deeper. She poured me a glass, then another. Whiskey turned to syrup in my mouth. My head swam. She sat on my lap, kissed my forehead. "Relax." Then, nothing. When I woke up, it was dark. I was lying on something hard. My mouth was taped. Hands and legs tied. I couldn't move. The air smelled like cardboard and motor oil. My head throbbed. I heard voices. "This one's going to Mexico." Another voice laughed. "Ha ha! Hope he speaks Spanish." I screamed through the tape, kicked, wriggled. No one came. The walls vibrated as the vehicle moved. A container truck. My body bounced with each pothole. I cried, really cried, for the first time in years. My nose was bleeding. My wrists burned from the rope. I kept thinking, why? Why me? Then the answer came clear. Because I deserved it. The container rattled. Hours passed. I lost track of time. My phone was gone. My ID, too. They'd erased me. I wasn't even a person anymore. Just cargo. This incident has been inspired from a real-life incident shared by our subscriber's friend. So his friend joined a running group, and this is what he said. "I'm a guy, and honestly, there are quite a few women in my running group I find attractive. If it ever feels like there's mutual interest, I usually try to suggest hanging out beyond the runs. Sometimes one-on-one, sometimes in a group. I'm always respectful and back off if they don't seem into it. But in my opinion, a running club is actually a pretty solid way to meet someone. I mean, where else are you supposed to go to meet new people these days?" And in real life, his friend was not a creep and approached the women with respect. I was walking back from work late that night, my shoes scraping against the cracked pavement, the dim glow of the streetlights barely cutting through the damp mist. I wasn't supposed to be working that late, but you know how it goes. Just one more file, one more email, one more hour to prove you matter. I turned down Maple Alley, a shortcut I usually avoided. That night, for some reason, I didn't. That's when I saw them. 2 men, 1 woman. She was backed up against the cold brick wall, her eyes wide and shimmering with fear. One man pinned her shoulders while the other fumbled with a strip of duct tape, pressing it hard over her mouth. She gave out this muffled cry that punched straight into my gut. I froze, my feet locked to the ground, heartbeat pounding in my ears. I wanted to move, I wanted to scream, but I just stood there, watching. I don't know how long I stayed, eyes glued to the scene. Long enough to feel like a complete coward, long enough to hate myself. By the time my body loosened, they were gone. She was gone. Only the echo of footsteps and the heavy taste of guilt remained. Instead of calling the cops or going home, I wandered. Ended up at Harrison Park. Just a guy killing time on a park bench, watching the night fall deeper into itself. That's when I noticed him. A homeless man, scruffy red beard, battered army coat, shuffling near another bench. He looked over, squinting through the dark, and slowly ambled toward me.
"Hey, man,"
he rasped, his voice dry like sandpaper.
"You mind watching my shit for a bit? Gotta catch some sleep."
"Yeah, sure," I murmured, not really thinking. He lay down right there on the bench, head resting awkwardly on a tattered backpack. I sat in silence, hugging my arms against the cold, replaying the alley scene over and over in my head. About 20 minutes later, he sat up, fishing a cigarette from his pocket. His hands trembled as he lit it. He took 3 drags before it happened. The cough hit him hard, doubling him over. His face flushed deep red, then darkened to a shocking shade of purple. His eyes bulged, mouth wide open but silent. I shouted, leaping up, smacking his back hard. "Come on, man, breathe!" He toppled sideways onto the bench. I panicked, hands shaking, unsure if I should call an ambulance. Would he even want that? Could he pay for it? I was about to dial when he suddenly gasped, sucking in air like a drowning man breaking the surface. He sat up, wiping sweat off his brow. "Fucking cop D," he wheezed. Then, no joke, he took another drag off the cigarette he never dropped. I had let out a breath I didn't realize I was holding. "You sure you're okay?" He gave me a rough laugh.
"Ha! Been through worse. What's your name, kid?"
"Evan," I said.
"Red,"
he nodded, tapping his chest.
"People call me Red."
For the next hour, we talked. Or rather, he talked and I listened. He rambled about his life on the streets, about how people look right through you when you're homeless. He had stories. Lots of stories, but none of them added up.
"Yeah, I was a contractor,"
he said at one point, squinting at the sky.
"Built half the office towers downtown."
Thought you said you were a musician," I pointed out. He waved a hand.
Did both."
His eyes darted around constantly, like he was expecting someone. He kept asking me weird questions. If I lived nearby, if I had family, if I walked this park often. Something about the way he kept looking at my phone made my skin crawl. Eventually, I stood up. I should head home. Red gave me this long, unsettling smile.
"You sure you want to walk alone, Evan?"
"Yeah, I'm good," I said quickly. I made it about 20 steps before I heard his voice again.
"Hey, kid."
I turned. Red was still on the bench, but he was watching me closely.
"You saw something tonight, didn't you?"
I stiffened. "What?"
"In the alley. 2 men, 1 woman. You saw, right?"
My mouth went dry. "How do you know about that?" He gave another rough laugh.
"Ha! This city's got eyes, Evan. And ears. Not everything is as random as you think."
My stomach twisted. "Who are you, really?"
"Just a guy,"
he shrugged.
"trying to stay alive. But you should watch yourself. People saw you, too."
I didn't sleep that night. I got home, locked the door, double-checked the windows, turned on every light. I even dragged a chair under the doorknob like some half-baked movie defense. But it wasn't fear keeping me awake. It was him, Red, his face, his laugh, his knowing smirk. That parting line kept rattling around in my head.
"People saw you, too."
By dawn, I convinced myself he was just messing with me. An old, tired man stringing together street gossip and paranoia. I showered, grabbed coffee, walked to work, all while trying to shake off the night before. I told myself I'd just forget it, push it out of my mind. People disappear into cities all the time. Faces blur, memories fade. But Red's didn't. Over the next few days, I started noticing things. Small things. The receptionist at my office, Julie, gave me an odd look when I walked in. "Rough night, Evan?" she asked, half smiling. "Yeah, I guess," I muttered, but her smile faltered, eyes flicking down. I followed her gaze. A smudge on my cuff, rust-colored. Had that been there since the alley? I clenched my fists and hurried past. Then there was the elevator guy. Not someone I usually noticed. This skinny dude with thinning hair who ran the freight elevator. He caught my eye on Thursday, nodded like we shared some inside joke, and said, "Funny seeing you here, man." We'd never spoken before. Friday, my boss called me in. Said someone had been asking about me. A man, rough-looking, beard, army coat. Said he was an old friend. My boss, amused, wanted to know if I owed anyone money. I told him no. That night, walking home, I felt watched. Not followed, nothing dramatic, just this prickling sense under my skin. Like the city was leaning in, paying attention in a way it never had before. By the weekend, I couldn't take it. I had to go back to Harrison Park. I found the same bench, the same cracked pavement, the same sagging trees overhead, but no Red. I waited, hours maybe, watched couples drift past, joggers pound the path, a group of teenagers laughing too loud under the streetlights. But no Red. As I sat there, cold creeping into my bones, a figure finally approached. For one stupid, hopeful second, I thought it was him. But it wasn't. It was an old woman, wispy gray hair, heavy coat. She paused in front of me, staring like she knew me.
"You're in the spot,"
she said softly. "What?" She pointed at the bench.
"That's Red's spot. Always has been."
I frowned. "Yeah, I know him. I met him here a few nights ago." She gave me a strange look.
"Red's been gone 10 years, sweetheart."
My mouth went dry. No, I just saw him." She shook her head slowly.
"He died right here. Copty. Lungs gave out. Sad thing. People still leave his old bench alone, though."
I stumbled up, heart hammering. "You're sure?" She nodded.
"That can't be,"
I whispered. "I spoke to him. He helped me." Her pale eyes softened, but there was something distant in them, like she was looking through me.
"I was the girl,"
she said softly.
"all those years ago. Red saw me in that alley. 2 men holding me down. He stood right where you did. They did everything to me, and he did nothing. He carried it," she continued, "that guilt. Drank himself sick, smoked himself to the bone until his lungs gave up. Died right here on this bench."
I stumbled backwards, hands shaking. "No, I talked to him. He warned me. He knew." She just gave me this sad little smile. I didn't know what to say. My head was spinning, chest tight. I backed away, mumbling something, anything, to get away. As I left the park, every shadow seemed to stretch toward me. Every rustle in the trees sounded like a whisper. People saw you too. I don't remember how I got home. I just know that when I slammed the door behind me, I locked it twice, dragged the chair under the knob, flicked on every light in the apartment. My heart pounded so loud I could feel it in my throat. I paced, drank water, sat down, stood up again, checked the windows, checked my phone. What if they saw me? What if I'm next? What if... Hours passed. Dawn bled pale light through the blinds. I was so exhausted I could barely think. And then, like it wasn't even a decision, I found myself back at Harrison Park. I walked in a daze, shoes crunching softly on the gravel, until I reached that bench, the one where Red died, where I met him, where he had once stood, frozen, while a woman, this same old woman, was screaming for help. I sat down slowly, my body heavy, my mind numb. I don't know how long I sat there. 10 minutes? An hour? Eventually, without even thinking, I reached into my coat pocket and pulled out the cigarette pack I'd bought on the way. My hands trembled as I tapped one free. I'd never smoked before, but I lit it, brought it to my lips, drew in a shaky breath. As the smoke filled my lungs, a rough, bitter burn spread through my chest. I coughed hard, tears stinging my eyes. I wondered if this was how it had started for Red. One cigarette, then another, then another. I sat there, the sun rising behind the city skyline, and let the cold seep into my bones. Somewhere in the back of my mind, one truth settled like ash. I was in the spot now. This story is loosely inspired from a real-life incident shared by one of our subscribers. In real life, he saw two men holding a woman and screamed immediately. The two men ran away. He later also informed the cops.
The rain hadn't let up since morning. Thin sheets of it sliding down the windows, glossing the streets in a wet shimmer that made everything look just slightly unreal. My girlfriend, Lex, and I had been curled up on her futon watching reruns of True Blood all afternoon. The smell of cinnamon candles and buttery popcorn thick in the air. It should have been the kind of lazy Sunday we remember fondly. Except we ran out of snacks. "I need chocolate," she said, pulling on her hoodie. The walk to Cal's Mini Mart was only 4 blocks down, right past the old diner and across from the boarded-up theater. The streets were mostly empty, except for the soft splash of passing cars and a man walking maybe 30 feet behind us. He looked about mid-40s, a little scruffy, dark coat, hood up. I wouldn't have noticed him if he hadn't been talking to himself. "You hear that?" I asked, tilting my head back toward him. Lex shrugged. Probably just some guy trying to stay dry. But the voice carried, low, rhythmic, muttering like a chant. We kept moving. Inside the mini-mart, the harsh fluorescent lights buzzed overhead. I was busy loading up on sour gummies and red vines while Lex giggled over a giant bag of caramel popcorn. She leaned into me, whispering, "We could get messy with this tonight." Her breath was warm against my ear. I smiled. That's when I saw him again. He was outside, standing under the awning, just staring, not moving, not blinking, just watching through the glass. I tensed up. "Lex, that guy's still here." She glanced out. "He's gone now," she said. And she was right. Just like that, he'd vanished. My girlfriend is super pretty with the perfect curves, so I have to be extra cautious when I'm out with her. We stepped out and debated heading straight back, but Lex wanted a chai latte from Luna Bean, the indie coffee shop down the street. We ducked inside, shook the water off our jackets, and placed our order. Lex touched my hand. "You good?" "Yeah," I lied. Because there he was again, across the street this time. Standing under the laundromat sign, like he was posing for a crime scene photo. His gaze locked on us, heavy as a hand on the back of my neck. Lex caught me staring. Jesus, he is watching us. She slid closer. "Let's leave the moment we get our drinks." We did. But just as we turned, his voice split through the room.
Hey, there you are!
People turned. My spine stiffened. He walked toward us, calm, confident.
That's my niece and son. I told them not to leave the apartment without me.
The entire room froze. My hand found Lex's. She looked up at me, and in that moment, I didn't have to say a word. We booked it out of there. Our footsteps slapped the sidewalk. We didn't speak, just moved. Every breath was steam. Behind us, the sound of slow, deliberate footsteps followed. I dared to look. He was still behind us, not running, just walking, like he knew we'd tire before he did. Smiling, Lex gripped my hand tighter. "This isn't some misunderstanding. He knows we're scared. He's enjoying it." The streets grew darker the closer we got to her neighborhood. Street lamps thinned out. Houses disappeared behind rows of hedges. It was just us and the sound of wet shoes on pavement. We turned a corner. Nothing but a stretch of sidewalk leading to the park, which was pitch black and sloping downhill. "We shouldn't have gone this way," I muttered. "He's speeding up," Lex hissed. That's when we ran. full tilt, no coordination, just raw panic. His voice tore the air behind us.
Don't go! Don't you want to play?
My stomach turned. Lex nearly tripped on the curb, but I caught her. Then headlights flicked on up the street. A white Ford slowed down as we waved frantically, shouting. The car stopped. A guy, maybe mid-30s, stepped out. Ball cap, black hoodie, a takeout bag in his hand.
What's going on?
He asked. Lex barely got the words out.
He's been following us. He said we were his son and niece, but we're not. He's behind us.
The man's gaze lifted. The creep rounded the corner. This time he didn't stop. He walked right up until the guy stepped between us.
Back the fuck off,
the man said. The creep tilted his head like a curious dog. Then he smiled. That same oily grin that had haunted us all night.
You're gonna regret this. These little gummies belong to me,
he said. I felt Lex tighten against me. The man didn't move. Try it. Just try it. For a second, it felt like something might break. Then the creep laughed, short and sharp, and turned around. And just like that, he walked off into the dark. A stranger drove us the rest of the way, trailing slow behind as we walked the final few feet to Lex's gate. You should have called the cops, he said. I nodded. Yeah, we panicked. He didn't press us, just gave a tight nod and waited until we were behind the door before driving off. Inside, Lex collapsed onto the couch. Her hair clung to her face in wet tendrils. You think he was gonna hurt us? No, I said. I think he would have done worse. Neither of us said anything for a while. I moved closer, held her hand. It trembled. The popcorn from earlier was still on the table, stale and soggy now. But we weren't hungry anymore. We got lucky that night. Maybe that's all it was. Luck and one guy who decided to stop. But sometimes, I wonder if the creep knew where we lived. If maybe he wasn't following us by chance. If maybe he picked us before we even left the house. The only person I ever truly hated was my old college roommate, Jackson. We were both sophomores at a small arts college in Maine. He was my first friend there, and I really thought he liked me. I sure liked him. Even though he was a lot more outgoing and less serious than me, we did everything together. Toward the end of our first semester, the school threw a dance for the underclassmen. Jackson was friends with our student government, so he volunteered to help set it up. For a week before the event, he'd returned to the dorms with updates on the dance. He told me about the circus-themed decorations he'd helped put up, the face painting supplies, all the weird decisions that the student government kept making. Apparently the dance hall was being redesigned as a 3-ring circus tent, and no one was allowed inside unless they were in clown costumes. I thought it sounded like a stupid idea, but if Jackson was going to go, then I would too. He was the kind of guy who made everything more fun. He even bought me a clown suit to match his. On the day of the dance, we were supposed to get ready together, but he texted me that he'd have to get there early to help set up. I put on my clown costume alone and then headed across campus. As soon as I pushed open the front doors, I realized that something was very, very wrong. The dance hall looked as fancy and formal as always. All my classmates were inside, and they were all wearing tuxes and ball gowns. No circus theme, no clowns, and every single person turned to look at me, wearing my polka dot jumpsuit, giant shoes, and bright red nose. The laughter started immediately. It was the single most humiliating moment of my entire life. I felt like the biggest idiot in the world, and the loudest laughter came from Jackson, my supposed friend, who stood in the crowd wearing a nice black suit. He'd set me up. I ran back to the dorms crying, clown makeup running down my face. I packed up my stuff and left. I officially dropped out of school later that week. Jackson called me a bunch of times, but I didn't answer his calls. I listened to his voice messages though, and they definitely didn't help.
Come on, man, it was just a joke. Don't be so butthurt.
I took a year off from school. It took a lot of time and a lot of therapy to regain my confidence. I ended up enrolling at a different school and studied psychology. I became a therapist myself, vowing to help people overcome trauma like my own therapist had done for me. Years passed and my life was pretty great. I stopped thinking about Jackson altogether, finally free from all the embarrassment. Then the unthinkable happened. Jackson showed up in my office as a new patient. He didn't even recognize me. I changed so much from when I was a skinny 19-year-old. I really got in shape. I grew a beard, and I shaved off all my hair to hide my growing baldness. I looked like a completely different person. Meanwhile, Jackson looked exactly the same, though his goofiness had been replaced by melancholy. He was divorced and stuck in a dead-end job. In our first session, I expected him to eventually figure out who I was, but he never did. I treated him like a regular client, even though the sight of him was bringing back all my bad memories. After that first session, I came to a dark conclusion. It wasn't a coincidence that Jackson had found me. It was fate, and it was my opportunity to finally have my revenge. In our second session, I convinced him to try hypnotherapy to get to the root of his problems. It took a lot of convincing, but he finally gave in. He really trusted me. So after that, I put him into a trance at the beginning of each session, planting suggestions into his subconscious. I told him to think of clowns. I told him that clowns were lurking around every corner, that soon they would find him and hurt him. To a normal person, this trick wouldn't work. But because Jackson had this lingering guilt of his clown prank on me, my suggestions tapped into his subconscious. It didn't take long for him to develop a fear of clowns. In our next sessions, after I pulled him out of his trance, he told me how he was seeing clowns everywhere he went. In mirrors, on the street, staring at him through half-open doors. Why do you think that is? Is there something from your past that would explain why clowns are after you? He looked up at me, eyes filled with tears, and he told me about the prank he'd done all those years ago. He looked guilty, broken, as he described his prank in excruciating detail. I thought it was just a joke, but my roommate was so mortified that he dropped out of school. I feel so guilty about it. I always have. I guess I deserve this. In that moment, all my lingering anger disappeared. He looked helpless, broken. And did you ever apologize to him? I tried, but he was already gone before I realized how much I messed up. And I'll never find him. I can't even remember his name. He had no idea that he was sitting across from the person he desperately wanted to see. I could have introduced myself right then, but I didn't. Instead, I told him, "Your friend, whoever his name is, has probably moved on with his life. You should too." I continued to have sessions with him after that, but I stopped hypnotizing him. And when he brought up his continued clown hallucinations, I always assured him that it was all in his head. He needed to move on. I saw him twice a week for the next couple months, but he wasn't getting better. He still saw clowns wherever he looked. He told me that he even called the police a few times, certain that clowns were lurking outside his house. It didn't matter what I said now. I planted the fear in his brain, and that fear just got worse and worse. Eventually, I decided to finally tell him who I really was. I wouldn't admit to the hypnosis trick, but I thought if he knew who I was, if he knew I forgave him, then he'd get some peace of mind. Unfortunately, he didn't show up for his next appointment, or his appointment after that. My secretary called him, but he never answered. After a week, I saw his name show up on my newsfeed. He was found wandering naked around his neighborhood, brandishing a knife and screaming about clowns everywhere. He's in a mental hospital now. He finally snapped. My revenge went a bit too far, I guess. I might go and visit him in the hospital. I might tell him the truth. But then again, I might not. I haven't decided yet. This story is loosely inspired from a real-world event. In September 2016, during a bizarre wave of clown sightings across the American South, a Georgia couple added fuel to the fire, but with a twist. Brandon Moody called 911, claiming to see clowns near a white van in Troup County. When police found no trace of suspicious activity, Moody changed his story, eventually confessing he fabricated the incident. His sister-in-law, Rebecca Moody, also made a separate false clown report. The prank turned criminal. Both were arrested and charged with obstruction and unlawful conduct during a 911 call. Authorities reaffirmed a zero-tolerance stance on hoax reports amid growing public fear.
You know that feeling you get when you're walking out on thin ice and you hear the faintest crack but you keep going? That was me 3 years ago, standing in Alex's dorm room, clutching a little pink Victoria's Secret bag. We'd been sort of together for months, 6 to be exact. I say sort of because Alex had once told me, eyes half-lidded and voice dripping in faux sincerity, that he wanted to be single, but with me. I laughed it off at the time, thinking maybe he was just scared of commitment. Maybe he needed space. Translation, he wanted his freedom, but he wanted me on standby when things got quiet. It was February 13th. I remember because I was holding $150 worth of delicate lace, and another bag with the wallet and sneakers he'd mentioned wanting. I was so sure I'd nailed Valentine's Day. I imagined his face lighting up when he opened the gifts. Imagined us tangled up after, all laughter and kisses. But that night, Alex texted, "Hey, can we talk?" My heart twisted. Not this talk. His dorm smelled like stale beer and Axe body spray. When I walked in, he was on his bed, scrolling through his phone, acting like I hadn't just spent half my paycheck on him. "Hey," I said softly, putting the bags down. "Happy," he cut me off. "So, I think we should stop seeing each other." I just stood there. "What?" He didn't even look up. "I want to be single." That word hit me like a slap. "But..." I tried to keep my voice calm. "You're already single. You wanted to be single, remember?" Alex finally put his phone down, sighing like I was the one exhausting him. "Look, I don't want to do this whole thing. Let's not make this dramatic." I felt the anger rise, but I swallowed it. Instead, I gave him a tight smile. "Sure," I said, my voice shaking. "No drama." I left the lingerie, wallet, and sneakers on his desk. "Happy Valentine's," I muttered as I walked out. But here's the thing. I didn't really walk away. The first strange thing happened 2 days later. I was at home, lying on my bed, scrolling through Instagram, when a message popped up. "He's at Chloe's. Thought you should know." The account was private, no profile picture. I stared at it, heart hammering. Chloe was the girl that Alex swore was just a friend. I didn't reply, but I saved the username. That night, I created a fake profile, new Gmail, new handle, fresh photos pulled from a random Pinterest board. I called her Amber. Amber liked hiking, coffee shops, indie bands. She was exactly Alex's type. I sent him a follow request. Not 2 hours later, he accepted. And then he messaged, "Hey, you're cute. You go to Madison?" For the next week, Amber flirted with Alex. She watched him lie effortlessly. She watched him talk about how his crazy ex was still hung up on him, how he was so over drama, how he was ready to have some fun. I should have stopped, but I didn't. Around this time, my anonymous informant struck again. "You should check his Venmo." And so I did. His transactions were public. Flowers for Chloe, drinks with Maddie, concert tickets for someone called Tasha. My stomach twisted into knots. So I waited. And then, Valentine's night, I asked Amber to make a plan with him. A fake plan. You should come over. Roommates are out. Bring wine. He was eager. I booked an Airbnb under another fake account. Just a basic place, 2 neighborhoods over. I messaged him the address. That night, I sat across the street in my car, watching the window. He showed up right on time, wine bottle in hand, grinning like a teenager. I watched him knock, wait, knock again. And when no one opened the door, I saw his confusion melt into frustration. He pulled out his phone, called Amber. Of course, Amber didn't pick up. And that's when I slipped out of my car. I wore a hoodie pulled low, a scarf over my face, gloves. I walked right up to him. "Hey," I said softly. Alex turned, eyebrows furrowed. "Do I didn't wait. I slammed the metal pipe into his stomach. He crumbled, gasping. "Remember me now?" I hissed. He looked up, eyes wide, realization dawning. "What the f—" I hit him again, this time in the knee. He let out a strangled yelp. I leaned down, inches from his face. "Happy Valentine's, asshole." I didn't kill him. I left him there, groaning, clutching his side. I got back in my car and drove away, heart pounding so hard I could barely see straight. But that wasn't the end. A few days later, I checked his social media. Photos of his bruises, captions like, "Got jumped last night, SMH, people are crazy." His friends sent him sympathy. Chloe left a heart emoji. But then, another DM. "You're not done yet." My anonymous informant again. The next week, Amber messaged Alex again. "Sorry, was out of town. Want to try again?" And this idiot, he agreed. Same Airbnb, same wine, same setup. This time, I wasn't the one waiting. I hired a guy I found online. Someone who didn't ask too many questions. Paid him half up front, half after. Told him to scare Alex. Just scare him, no permanent damage. And when I watched from across the street, I saw Alex show up, cocky grin and all, only to have my guy grab him, shove him against the wall, and whisper something in his ear. Alex paled. He stumbled back, shaking his head, looking around wildly. I never found out exactly what my guy told him. That was part of the deal. But after that night, Alex went dark. Weeks passed. No posts, no check-ins. His friends started wondering where he'd gone. Chloe posted something cryptic about people showing their true colors. And then, one night, I got a message. He left town. This story is inspired from a real-life incident shared by one of our subscribers. This is what she told me, directly. Back in university, I was seeing this guy, and when we eventually had the "what are we" conversation, his answer was basically, "I want to stay single, but still be with you." Translation: "You're great, but I want the freedom to hook up with others, and if that doesn't work out, you'll be my fallback." As you can imagine, that really filled me with confidence. Not. Despite that rocky definition, we ended up staying together for about 6 months. And guess when he decided to break things off? The night before Valentine's Day, right after I had gone out and spent over $150 on lingerie to surprise him. Her name was Emily, a plus-sized brunette with a bright laugh and a fondness for country music. We had connected over a phone-a-date website. We had late-night phone calls talking about everything from bad exes to favorite songs. I knew country wasn't my thing, but I remembered enough from my last relationship to fake it. So when she mentioned liking Luke Combs and Miranda Lambert, I played along. "Let's meet," she said one night over the phone, her voice soft but eager. "There's this cute cafe on Main Street." Sure, I replied, hiding my nervousness. "Friday night?" "Perfect. Oh, and just a heads up, I'll bring a friend. You know, safety and all." "Totally cool," I assured her, even though a part of me wondered how that might change the vibe. Friday arrived. I dressed casual but neat, dabbed on some cologne, and made my way to the cafe. Emily was already there, waving at me from a corner table. Sitting next to her was her friend. And damn, she was stunning. Tall, sleek black hair with a bold streak of platinum, sharp cheekbones. A Dua Lipa look-alike if I'd ever seen one. "Hey, you must be Jason," Emily smiled, getting up for a quick hug. "Yeah, hi. And you must be Emily. And you," I turned to her friend, "you look just like Dua Lipa." Her friend laughed, a soft musical sound. Emily's smile faltered for a second. We ordered coffee, some pastries. I tried to focus on Emily, but honestly, my eyes kept drifting toward her friend, who introduced herself as Cassie. She had this effortless charm, tossing her hair back, tapping her long nails on the table, smiling every time I said something remotely funny. Emily, on the other hand, seemed tense. Maybe she noticed the shift in energy. The date ended awkwardly. Emily gave me a quick hug and left with Cassie, throwing me a look I couldn't quite read. But later that night, I got a DM on Instagram. "Cassie, you were fun to talk to. Want to hang out sometime? Just us?" Wink emoji. I hesitated for half a second before replying, "Sure, when?" 2 nights later, Cassie showed up at my apartment. She slipped off her jacket like she owned the room. "Nice place," she said, looking around, her voice low and teasing. "Thanks. Drink?" "Wine, if you have it." We drank, talked, laughed. Then one thing led to another. She knew exactly what she was doing. Everything about her screamed confidence. Suddenly, the front door burst open. "What the hell?" Emily stood there, wild-eyed, phone raised. She snapped 2, 3 quick selfies with us tangled on the couch in the background. Emily's face was flushed, her chest heaving as she stormed into the room, her phone flashing. "Emily, what the hell?" I stammered, trying to sit up, but Cassie was half draped over me, equally frozen. "You slimy bastard!" she shrieked, hurling the wine bottle at me. It smacked against the wall just above me. "Emily, calm down!" I tried to stand, but she was already grabbing a decorative bowl off the table and flinging it. It shattered against the floor, shards scattering across the hardwood. Casey scrambled up, putting her clothes into place. "Emily, let's just..." "Shut up, Cassie!" Emily spun on her, eyes wild. "I knew it! I knew you were always the one!" Before I could react, Emily lunged at me. Her palm connected sharply with my cheek, a sting of heat exploding across my face. Are you insane?" I barked, stumbling back, holding my cheek. She wasn't done. She yanked at my shirt collar, pulling me down and biting my shoulder. "Ow! What? Emily, stop!" I shoved her off, heart pounding in panic. Cassie grabbed Emily's arm, pulling her toward the door. "Emily, let's go. Come on, this isn't..." But Emily was a storm, still throwing curses and insults over her shoulder as Cassie half dragged her out the door. And then, silence. I stood there, panting, shirt rumbled, shoulder throbbing. My living room looked like a tornado had passed through. Broken glass, a toppled lamp, wine splashed across the rug. I slumped onto the couch, shaking. What the hell had just happened? That night I locked all the doors, double-checked the windows, and turned off my phone. I couldn't sleep. Every sound outside made me flinch. The next few days I kept a low profile. No Instagram posts, no texts, no casual strolls outside. I even avoided the usual cafes and bars, just in case. I didn't know if Emily was out there plotting revenge, or if Cassie would show up again. All I knew was I'd stepped into something far messier than I'd bargained for, and I had no idea how deep it went. This story is inspired from one of the real-life incidents shared by our subscribers. This is what they told me. Back in the mid-90s, I was talking to this girl over the phone. We clicked pretty well and eventually decided to meet up in person at a local mall. Now, since it was our first time meeting, she brought along a friend for safety, which I totally respected. Now, one thing that stood out from our chats was that she loved country music. So, the day arrives, we meet, and right away I notice her friend. Striking red hair, very bold, very attention-grabbing. Well, trying to be charming and show off my country music knowledge, I casually blurt out, and I swear to God, "Wow, you look just like Rita McNeil." Now, here's the kicker. What I meant to say was Reba McEntire, you know, the glamorous, fiery, red-headed country singer. But instead, I mixed up the names and compared her friend to Rita McNeil, who, let's just say, looks completely different. And to top it all off, my actual date was a fully figured brunette. But not at all in the same way that Rita McNeil was known for. Yeah, that moment didn't win me any points. I could tell the vibe shifted, and not long after, she stopped returning my calls. To this day, more than 25 years later, I still cringe remembering that slip-up. I can only imagine she's told the story a million times about that clueless guy who compared my friend to Rita McNeil. Now, to you, if by some wild chance that you're listening to this, I've genuinely been mortified about that moment for decades. It was nothing but a dumb name mix-up, and I've been kicking myself over it ever since.
I still dream about her sometimes. Marshmallow. A fat white cat with one blue eye and one green. She used to curl up on my chest when I was 10. I once left the garage door open by accident. She wandered out and got hit by a car. I was the last to see her alive. I remember her limp body, still warm, and the unbearable sound my sister made when she found out. I swore I saw a ghost for a year after. And maybe I did. I've never forgiven myself. I'm 25 now, and I guess guilt doesn't die. It just shapeshifts. Like the weird-ass trip I had last month in Lisbon. Or maybe Porto. Honestly, the city's blurred by day 3. What I do remember is the hostel. A crumbling pastel building with a rooftop view and bunk beds that smelled like beer and secrets. It was the last night on our pub crawl. And everyone was high on cheap sangria, Taurus energy, and this weird green liqueur the locals called Liqueur Bairo, or something like that. That night I was on a streak. I'd made out with a Swiss girl in an elevator, outdrank an Australian dude named Milo, and was now deep in flirt mode with this gorgeous chick from Quebec named Camille. She had this accent that made even dumb shit sound sexy. "You're so, how you say, stupid but cute." She giggled, tucking her red hair behind her ear. "Let's go somewhere." The hostel's common room was mostly empty, except for 2 Germans having a serious whisper fight over Spotify controls. Camille came very close, quick and sharp, then tugged at my hand. "Let's get a room nearby. I want you with all of these bunk beds and sweaty people," she said. I went to pee before we left, and that's when things shifted. The lights in the hallway were out. I was half drunk, barefoot, and giggling to myself like an idiot. I walked past the kitchen when something brushed my leg. Then, bang! I felt the sharp burning pain just above my ankle. Ow! I yelled, stumbling back. I flicked on my phone flashlight. It was the hostel's cat. Black, skinny, twitchy. Its pupils were huge, like 2 bottomless wells. It hissed and bolted. Blood trickled down my leg. When I limped back, Camille laughed. "Did you fight a vampire?" "The cat bit me, like properly punctured my ankle." She shrugged. "It's probably vaccinated. You okay?" "Yeah," I lied. I didn't want to ruin the night. We walked into a dingy little hotel nearby and checked into a room with a broken lamp and a mirror that made you look 10 pounds fatter. We made out and got halfway to something fun, but the pain in my leg was growing louder than anything else. By 3 a.m., my leg was visibly swelling. By 4 a.m., I couldn't walk on it. My whole shin looked like a red balloon with a grudge. Camille was asleep, and I didn't want to freak her out, so I Googled in the bathroom with my pants down and heart racing. Cat scratch fever, Pasteurella multisida, risk of sepsis, limb amputation. I dry heaved. I limped back into bed. The room had this strange scent. Not just drops of passion and sweat, but something sour and wrong. I swear I heard purring, but the hotel didn't have a cat. I tried to sleep, but I ended up having the weirdest dream. Marshmallow was there, sitting on my chest again, only this time she was whispering in a language I didn't understand. Her eyes weren't mismatched anymore. They were glowing red. Behind her was the black cat from the hostel. And someone, standing in the shadows humming a lullaby. I woke up sweating. Camille was gone. I mean, completely gone. No bag, no clothes, no note. Just a faint red line scratched into the bedsheet beside me. I blinked. My leg was worse. I tried to stand and almost passed down. Panicked, I hobbled down to reception. The clerk stared at my leg and immediately called an ambulance. The ride to the hospital was a blur. IVs, shouting in Portuguese, questions about rabies. They pumped me with antibiotics and took blood samples. A doctor with tired eyes leaned over me and said,
"You're lucky. Another 12 hours and we might have had to cut."
In the hospital bed, I kept thinking about Marshmallow, the cat bite, Camille, that scratch on the sheet. I called the hostel. "Camille just checked out, and our cat died last week," the girl at the desk told me. I froze. "What do you mean died?" "She got out one night. Someone left the back door open. Got hit by a car. It was bad." My mouth went dry. "Are you okay, sir?" she asked. Yeah." I lied again and hung up. Later, a nurse handed me my bag. "This fell out," she said, holding up a small object. It was a cat collar, black, with a little silver bell. I'd never seen it before. I asked around. No one knew how it got there. I flew home 2 days later, with a heavy limp and a fever that clung for weeks. No one believed the story, of course. They said I hallucinated, that Camille ghosted me, that I probably imagined the collar. But sometimes, late at night, I hear a bell jingle in the hallway. Once, I found a scratch on my bedsheet, the same faint red line. And last week, I opened my front door to find a paw print in the snow. Just one. Marshmallow still visits. And I think she brought friends. I don't drink much anymore, and I always keep the doors locked. But the thing is, if you've ever wronged a cat, truly wronged her, she doesn't forget, and she doesn't forgive. Not even after death. This story is inspired from a real-life event which was shared with me by one of the Broccoli fam subscribers. I was staying at an Airbnb in the heart of Barcelona, around 1 a.m., a little tipsy and half asleep. I wandered toward the bathroom in the dark, and that's when it happened. The host cat, likely startled, sank its teeth into my foot. It was supposedly vaccinated, so I brushed it off as nothing serious at the time. I'd never heard of cat scratch fever before, but a few hours later, my leg began acting up in a way that felt ominous. It became stiff, incredibly sore, and ballooned up like it was trying to win a parade float contest. The bite had punctured right over a major vein, and the infection was spreading fast, like horror movie fast. Out of panic, I turned to the internet. Big mistake. The results were full of terms like near amputation and 2-week hospital stay, and suddenly my upcoming flight felt like the least of my worries. Thankfully, I was fine eventually.
I always took the back roads. Quiet, dark, winding lanes that cut through northern Pennsylvania like forgotten veins. They shaved a good 10 minutes off my commute, and most nights offered a kind of peace. But that winter night was different. The kind of cold that gets under your skin. No moon, no sound, just the hum of my engine and the occasional crackle of ice under the tires. Halfway through the drive, I saw it. A cat, or so I thought, right in the center of the road, frozen in place. Its eyes caught the glare of my headlights. Wide and eerily human. Poor thing, I muttered, flipping on the hazards. I stepped out, breath fogging the air, my boots crunching on frozen gravel. As I got closer, I realized something was off. It wasn't breathing. The fur didn't move with the wind. And then it hit me. It was a toy, stuffed, deliberately placed. I laughed nervously, crouched, and tossed it off the road. The moment I turned back to my car, I felt headlights light up my back. A van. White, loud engine. The driver leaned on the horn. "What the hell?" I whispered. The van idled inches behind my bumper. The man inside was huge, bearded, and pounding on the wheel, yelling something I couldn't hear. He gestured violently, arms flailing like windmills, and pointed at me, at my car. I panicked. I jumped in, slammed the door, and sped off. My hands were shaking as I tried to punch in my dad's number. "Hello? Dad? Someone's following me. A van. He was yelling. I don't know what." "Drive home. Don't stop. Just drive. I'll be outside waiting." He hung up. No time for questions. The van stayed behind me. Never tried to overtake. Just stayed close enough that I could see his face twisted in rage every time I glanced in the rear view. I flew through stop signs, red lights, past silent farmhouses with no street lamps. It felt like running from a bear. When I reached our driveway, I didn't brake softly. I skidded. I flung the door open, ran screaming for my dad, who was already on the porch. "Behind me!" The van screeched to a halt. The man jumped out. My dad didn't hesitate. He met him halfway with a rusty wrench in hand and slammed it across the guy's jaw. The sound was sickening. Bone on metal. The man dropped instantly. We were both breathing hard. My dad, knuckles bleeding, looked at the stranger sprawled on the gravel. "You okay?" I nodded, dizzy. I don't know what he wanted. He was just screaming." Something caught my dad's eye. He stared at my car. "Your trunk." It was slightly ajar, just a sliver. Neither of us moved for a second. Then he stepped forward and yanked it open, and everything stopped. A man, thin, pale, with wide, twitchy eyes, sprang out like a coiled snake. His body was smeared with what looked like ash or soot. He hissed as he ran, a blur disappearing into the night. My knees buckled. The man in the van, he'd been trying to warn me. We called the cops. The one my dad had knocked out was still breathing. Broken jaw, probably a concussion. But he came to, muttering, "There was someone in the trunk. I saw him climb in. I followed. I tried." He tried to save me. For the next few days, I couldn't stop replaying it. How long had the diaper man been in there? What would he have done if I'd driven all the way home and gone straight to bed, leaving the trunk shut? But it didn't end there. A week later, my dad went out to check the crawl space under the deck looking for a leak. He came back up holding a ragged hoodie. "You recognize this?" I didn't. It wasn't here before. We installed motion cameras the same day. That night, at 3:17 a.m., the alert pinged. We watched the footage in silence. A figure crawled across the backyard. Thin, trembling, still wearing the diaper. He reached the side of the house, touched the wall like it was something sacred, and just stood there for 30 full minutes, then walked off. The police weren't helpful. No ID on the guy. No record. No leads. A month later, I was in the grocery store when I saw her. A little girl, maybe 10, standing alone in the candy aisle. Something about her eyes struck me. Wide, eerily familiar. She looked up at me, smiled, and held out a toy. A stuffed cat. I froze. "Where did you get that?" She pointed toward the exit. "He gave it to me." I dropped the groceries and ran. Outside, there was no sign of him. No van, no diaper man, just wind and dusk. When I turned back, the girl was gone too. I never told my dad about that moment. This story was shared by one of our subscribers. In the real-life scenario, her dad didn't hit the van guy. He was able to warn them, but the diaper man ran off, never to be seen again. It started with the rain, one of those indecisive drizzles that taps the roof like fingers too polite to knock properly. The kind that turns the world into a grainy black and white movie. Half-seen shapes under streetlights, fogged-up windows, a soundscape of distant tires on wet pavement. I was sprawled out on the leather couch in the family room, feet on the ottoman, half a beer left on the side table. Stranger Things was on. My wife, Natalie, was out that night. Drinks with college friends she hadn't seen in a year. She kissed me quick before leaving, lipstick faint and sharp like cinnamon on my cheek. She smelled like sandalwood and hotel sheets. Told me not to wait up, but you know how that goes. You wait anyway. I was half watching the screen, half scrolling through memories when I heard it. First, the tires. The familiar crunch of her Civic rolling up our gravel driveway. Then, the engine clicked off. Car door opened, slammed shut. Footsteps, wet soles on concrete. The metallic screech of the screen door hinges. My heart reacted before my mind did. Recognition on a bone-deep level. That was her. It had to be her. But she didn't come in. I waited, remote in hand, staring at the foyer just out of sight. A minute passed, then another. "Natalie?" I called out. Silence. No rustle of her coat, no thunk of keys in the bowl, no click of her heels on hardwood. I stood, a tension rolling down my spine like static electricity. Made my way to the front door. Nothing. Her car wasn't in the driveway. The screen door was shut. Still, the porch light reflected nothing but glistening puddles and the slow slant of rain. I stepped out into the cold. The air had that post-midnight taste. Wet asphalt, pine, something metallic. No tire marks. No footprints on the walkway. Nothing. I went back inside, locked the door, and laughed. Nervous, throat tight. "Good one, brain," I muttered. "Really imaginative tonight." I chalked it up to a tired mind and suggestive television. Maybe I'd fallen asleep for a minute. Maybe I dreamt it. Maybe... Thud from upstairs. I froze. It wasn't a loud thud, but it had weight, like a dropped boot or a person shifting. The house was dark upstairs. Natalie's bedroom lamp had a soft amber glow triggered by motion, but it didn't flicker on. Just that murky hallway, and the open door of our room at the end, barely visible. I didn't move. Not right away. And then the absurdity of it broke through the fog. "It's your own damn house," I reminded myself. "What the hell are you afraid of?" I started up the stairs. Each creak underfoot echoed louder than it should have. I reached the landing and peered down the hall. The bedroom was empty, but the window was open. That window's latch was always stuck. Natalie used to curse it every spring. And tonight, it was wide open, letting in the soft whoosh of rain and wind. A breeze swept through the curtains, lifting them like arms in slow motion. I walked to the window and stared out into the backyard. Still, no movement, no animals, just the swing set creaking slightly, a leftover from when her sister's kids visited last summer. But when I returned to the living room, something else was off. The beer was gone, the remote was on the floor, and a single red lipstick kiss, fresh, marked the rim of my glass. I didn't sleep. I stayed up on the couch, blanket over me like armor. The TV was off. I didn't want noise anymore. I listened all night. Natalie got home around 3 a.m., laughing as she fumbled with the keys. She pushed open the door and blinked when she saw me awake. "Did I wake you?" she asked, stepping inside, shaking rain from her hair. "You didn't just get home." "What?" "I heard you earlier. I heard your car. I heard you walk in, but then nothing." She gave me a look. Not concerned, not skeptical, just tired. "I told you not to wait up," she said, walking past me toward the stairs. "Wait, Nat." I followed, breath quick. "Did you come home earlier and leave again?" She paused mid-step. "No. Why would I?" I didn't have an answer. She looked at me, finally registering the tension on my face. Her tone shifted, softer. "Hey," she said. "You okay?" I stared at her. So real, so there. But my body still held the echo of that kiss on the glass, the warmth of her voice behind me, and the open window. I think someone was in the house, I whispered. She stopped. What? Like, someone broke in? I nodded. But not like that. I mean, it felt like you. Like you were here, but not. She stepped closer. Did you see anyone? No. Then maybe, she said slowly, you just missed me a little too much. Her voice dropped. Or maybe you were hoping I'd come home early. There it was, the familiar flirt. Low, dangerous, like fire licking too close to curtains. Natalie, don't, I said, but my voice didn't have the weight it should. She leaned in, whispered, did you imagine me doing something I shouldn't? I'm sorry, I muttered. It's just, I feel off. That's all. She studied me. Her lips were pink, not red. No trace of lipstick. Okay, she said, stepping away. The next morning, I found muddy footprints outside the back door, leading out of the house. That night, I couldn't shake the thought, what if it was Natalie? Not the one who came home at 3 a.m., the other one. The one who kissed the rim of my glass. The house felt too still the next day, like it was holding its breath. Natalie had already left for work, humming in the hallway mirror, her perfume clinging to the walls. I stayed behind, staring out the window like the backyard held answers. The muddy footprints were still there, half faded, leading out from the back door. Something told me to check the bedroom closet. Not rational, not even conscious. The closet creaked open, smelling faintly of mothballs, winter coats, and something older. Natalie's college trunk sat in the back, under some scarves and a shoebox full of old Polaroids. I'd never opened the trunk. It was hers, and she never mentioned it. Some things just sit in your house like furniture. You forget they have stories. I lifted the lid. Inside, old yearbooks, handwritten notes folded into squares, a dried bouquet tied with ribbon, and a single, dusty manila envelope tucked beneath a cracked leather journal. I pulled it out. My name was on the front. For when it's too late, my stomach dropped. I tore it open. A photo fell out first. Natalie, clearly younger, standing beside a girl with the same smile, the same eyes, the same curve of cheek. But something was off. The girl next to her had a thin scar over her top lip, slicing through the smile like a warning. On the back, scrawled in faded ink, sorry I never told you, babe. Be careful. Do not let her in. Ever. My hands trembled. I sat down on the edge of the bed, the photo in one hand, the letter in the other. There was more written inside. Her name is Leela. She's my twin. We were separated at 16. Mom said she was unstable, but I didn't believe her. She had this way of mimicking people too well. Not just copying, but becoming. She'd steal clothes, voices, habits, then lie so convincingly you forgot she wasn't who she claimed to be. She made me feel like I was the fake one. One night, she kissed my boyfriend and then told him that I was the one who'd kissed him. He believed her. She disappeared after that. They said that she'd been sent away for help. I got one call from her years later. Drunk or high or just crazy. She said, "You'll never be safe, Nat. I'll always know how to be you. I never told you because I didn't think she'd find me. But if you're reading this, then something's wrong, and you already know. She wants you. That's how she replaces me." I reread the letter 3 times. My fingers dug into the paper like it might vanish. Then I heard the sound, a creak from downstairs. I stood slowly, like prey sensing the movement of something bigger, the kind of creak that didn't come from a floorboard, but a hinge, a door opening, somewhere near the living room. I pocketed the photo and crept toward the staircase. Halfway down, I paused. She was in the kitchen, back turned to me, wet hair falling down her back, red lipstick, a wine glass in hand. She turned as if she knew I was there. "Hey, babe," she smiled. "You left your beer out last night." My mouth went dry. Natalie had left at 8 a.m. I heard her keys, her car, but here she was, again, standing in my kitchen. I thought you went to work. She tilted her head, that same flirtatious tilt I knew, had memorized. I did. Changed my mind. Let me see your lip, I said suddenly. She blinked. What? Your lip, I repeated. Take off the lipstick. She stared at me. The smile twitched, then reset. You're being weird. I'm not joking. Wipe it off. She walked toward me slowly, each step echoing across the hardwood. Then she licked her lips, red smeared across her teeth. You liked it last night. My chest clenched. That was it. Natalie hadn't kissed me last night, but someone had. I know who you are, I whispered. Do you, though? I backed up the stairs. Stay where you are! She followed, leisurely, confident, like she'd already been here before. I reached our bedroom, slammed the door, and locked it. My hand went to my phone. No signal. Rain started again, tapping the roof with those same soft fingers. Down the hallway, I heard her nails skimming the wall. She was humming now, a lullaby. One I'd never heard Natalie hum in her life. Don't be scared, she cooed from behind the door. I know all your favorite things. I can be softer, sweeter. I don't have to leave you at night like she does. I looked around the room, breathing hard. The photo was still in my pocket. I pulled it out, held it like a cross. Outside, the wind howled. Then, silence. Nothing at the door. I waited 5 minutes. 10. Then, a knock. Not urgent, just polite. Then, her voice again, gentle, almost hurt. Let me in, babe. You know I love you. Always have. I didn't answer. I sat on the floor, staring at the door like it might dissolve. The knocking stopped. The house went quiet. Too quiet. And then I remembered the letter. Do not let her in. Ever. That was a week ago. Natalie didn't come back home from work that day. I reported to the police and they're searching for her. Her twin hasn't showed up either. I don't know what to do. I'm just crying. This story is inspired from a real-life incident which happened with one of our subscribers. This is what they said happened. One night, my wife was out with friends and I was home watching some crime show on TV. Probably not the best choice for an overactive mind. I clearly heard her car pull in, the door shut, footsteps, and the screen door creak open. But she didn't come in. After a minute, I got up to check. Her car wasn't there. The door was closed. No one outside. No time had passed for anyone to leave. And I didn't hear a thing. It freaked me out because I know what I heard.
In-laws are crazy, but my girlfriend's mother, Amara, took things to a whole new level. At first, I thought she was friendly, just a nice older woman who only wanted what was best for her daughter, Daisy. When I first went to her house for dinner, she seemed pleasant. She complimented my looks and said that she was happy for her daughter who found a good one. Our dinner was pleasant, though Daisy did most of the talking. I'm a pretty quiet, reserved person, which was why I was happy to be with somebody who was so outgoing and chatty. Opposites attract, I guess. Anyway, things seemed totally fine until Daisy left the table to use the restroom. Amara and I were left there alone. She asked me a couple questions about my family, but as I was answering her, she totally flipped out. She reached across the table and swiped my glass onto the floor. It shattered, and Pepsi flew everywhere. Daisy ran back in, drawn by the noise. Her mother acted like I broke the glass myself. It's okay, dear. We all have clumsy moments, don't we? I tried to argue, but that made things worse. Daisy thought I was blaming her mom for something that I did. She needed to take responsibility for my own mistakes. To keep the peace, I was forced to apologize for something I didn't do. The moment seemed to characterize all my future interactions with Amara. She genuinely treated me kindly when Daisy was watching, but as soon as Daisy left the room, she blamed me for crazy stuff that I didn't do. She accused me of making a joke about her weight. She said that I laughed and I would mention her dead husband. She even let out a fart that filled the room one time, and Daisy walked back in. She screamed, "Jesus, Nico, what did you eat?" All these little mind games were putting a real strain on my relationship, not because of any of them upset me, but because how I hated Daisy siding with her mother every time. I thought we loved each other, and it really bothered me that she never took my side. This went on for months. Daisy and I started arguing more often, and some of the things she said to me made me think Amara was filling her head with lies about me, even when I wasn't around. Eventually, I had enough. I needed to give Daisy some space to let her realize that her own mother was a psycho. I packed up a few things and asked my dad if I could crash at his place. He'd recently gotten a divorce, so he was more than happy to let me in. Over a few beers, I told him all the crazy things that Daisy's mom had done in the last few months. He got this really weird expression, as if he knew something that I didn't. "What did you say her name was?" "Amara." He suddenly jumped out of his chair and ran into his office. He came back a few minutes later with a box of Polaroid photos that he kept from college. I didn't understand what was going on until he pulled out a photo of him and Amara. They both looked so much younger, and Amara was thinner back then, but it was definitely her. My mom explained he dated Amara in college. He said she was great in bed, but always been a bit unhinged. He tried to break up with her multiple times, but she refused to accept it. He ended up ghosting her right after he met my mom. When Amara found out he moved on to someone else, she broke all the windows of his car and taped his picture all over campus with the word cheater written in lipstick across his face. Sounds about right. You gotta stay away from that woman, son. She's crazy. And obviously she's punishing you because she's still angry at me. I knew he was right, but I still loved Daisy. I decided to take Dad's old photo to Daisy as proof that her mother had a vendetta against me. Dad tried to talk me out of it, but I didn't listen. I drove right back to our apartment, praying that Daisy would be there by herself. I let myself in, but Daisy wasn't home. Amara was. She was standing in the middle of our living room with a big box of my stuff in her arms. It looked like she was already clearing out everything I owned, probably to throw in the garbage. "I know why you're doing this." I showed her the photo. She stepped closer. "Let me see that." She snatched the photo out of my hand, and before I could do anything, she shoved it in her mouth and started chewing. "Nice try. You're just as stupid as your father." She took a long time swallowing the Polaroid. It was painful to watch. Then she shoved me, ready for a fight. I had no intention fighting an old lady, but she wouldn't stop pushing me. She shoved me into the wall right next to the couch, which was open to a fold-out guest bed. She kept screaming my dad's name, as if she thought that's who I was. She balled up her fist, ready to punch me in the face, and to protect myself, I grabbed her by the waist and threw her off to the side. She landed on the bed, which made me feel a little better about fighting an old woman. But then the bed creaked horribly. The force of Amara's fall triggered the fold-out of the bed. It immediately snapped back into the couch, and Amara was trapped inside. "Nico, what the hell?" Daisy stood behind me, horrified. She missed the entire confrontation, but she'd seen me throw her mother into the folding couch. Without any context, it must have looked like I was a total monster. This one moment had to confirm all the crazy lies that Amara had been telling her. "Wait, I can explain." Daisy didn't want an explanation. She pushed past me, grabbed the cushions, and pulled the couch back open. Amara's body flopped out. She was curled up, a bloody cut along her side. She was holding her clearly broken wrist. Otherwise, she looked fine. This monster stormed in here and attacked me for no reason. He said he would kill me if I didn't force you to forgive him. Once again, I tried to explain what happened, but Daisy didn't listen. It's okay, Mom. It'll be okay. Suddenly, Amara bent forward and started choking. Daisy patted her on the back. At first, I thought Amara was faking it, but to me, it seemed to be real. Then, we saw torn up chunks of a Polaroid flop out of her mouth as she gasped for air. It landed at her feet. The biggest chunk showed both Amara and my dad's faces, finally proving to Daisy that her mother was lying to her. Mom. Amara looked at Daisy and then me. She didn't know what to say. Then she pointed one finger and screamed, "He made me eat it!" Daisy held her mother to comfort her, rubbing her back. That's when I finally gave up on the relationship. Thankfully, Amara had already put all my stuff in a box, and I picked it up and walked out. Screw you both. On March 1st, 2011, a Florida man was arrested for allegedly assaulting his ex-girlfriend's mother. The incident occurred in the victim's home in Palmetto, where Foreman, 53, asked to use the bathroom. According to the police reports, when the woman, 66, was lying on a fold-out couch, Foreman questioned, "What is this?" before allegedly shoving her onto the couch and folding it with her inside. The victim suffered an injury to the wrist and complained about back pain. She was hospitalized, and Foreman was charged with felony battery, held on a $250,000 bond.